Hello, everybody. I've got a hunch, so you could call me Hunch. Today, I'm going to be talking about hyperinflation and why I think it's coming. What you can do to save yourself and the crypto plays you can make. How we fix the problem. I'm giving you an all-for-one package here, baby, for the low price of free. So, let's talk about it, man. Not financial advice, purely theoretical stuff I'm talking about, educational. Let's talk about it. Okay, we stop in the music, the epic music. All right, so what made me want to talk about this today? I was thinking about Terra Luna, right? If you don't know what Terra Luna was, it was a smart contract platform, and it had a run on its stablecoin, the Terra Luna stablecoin. And while that was happening, a famous tweet came out. It said, "Deploying more capital, steady lads." That was what he wrote by the founder of Terra Luna, Do Kwon. And that's a pretty amazing tweet, right? Because I feel like that is kind of what is going to happen, right? And I'm going to explain myself. So here's just another article if you want to read about the anatomy of the run, the Terra Luna crash, right? So today there was a tweet that came out about New York Bancorp stock crashing 40%. They're cutting the dividend in order to build reserves, right? So I tweeted, "Stealth QE, capital controls incoming, 1 million plus Bitcoin incoming. Are you ready?" So I don't necessarily think, $1 billion Bitcoin is going to happen right away, even though Balaji thinks it's going to happen. He made that famous bet. I do think capital controls are forming and stealth QE is happening, right? Stealth QE is meaning they're not openly changing interest rates. They're just giving money to banks to cover bond losses, so on and so forth, stimulate lending, stimulate the economy, cause more inflation so they can pay the debt down. Whatever the case is, I don't know the exact answer. This is just the theory that I have, right? And some other people have. So this New York Bancorp also reminds me of Silicon Valley Bank. So everyone in crypto knows Silicon Valley Bank. There was a run on it, right? Because someone found out they were bankrupt because of all the bonds they bought from the Fed or from the Treasury market. The Fed devalued them by raising the rates fastest they've ever done in the history. They went belly up. Everyone wanted their money, and they had to bail out, right? So people could pay their employees in Silicon Valley, mostly in tech, so on and so forth. So what is that? This is stealth QE. And you don't hear a lot about stealth QE because they want you to be anchored to 2% inflation mentally. They've talked about this extensively, how inflation, there is a cognitive component, right, where you anchor to that thing. So this was written about a year or 2 years ago, and it says, "Is QE returning by stealth?" I think they mostly don't talk about this, but I do think this is continuing to happen. It hasn't been mainstream. Okay. Now, but you could see this in some of the big prominent players, right? Tim Draper says, there's going to be a run on the banks. People are going to be able to pay for food and rent and Bitcoin. A lot of people, Jack Dorsey said, hyperinflation is coming. A lot of people are envisioning a world where hyperinflation starts to take off. Now, inflation can look different. It could be compared to gold, and it goes up and down and is super volatile, and it doesn't all happen at once, or it does happen all at once. I don't know what it's going to look like, or, there's a chance it may not happen, because I'm going to be talking about how you solve this, right? So I say here's my solution, right? And I'm going to draw you a nice little paint sketch. It's euro dollar in the US or hyperinflation. Take your pick. So what do I mean by that, right? So if you don't know what the euro dollar is, I talk a lot about it and why I think it plays into my DeFi play. Down here I say, are Arca, Deco, and Sovereign worth billions because of their stablecoin plays? Jeff Snyder talks a lot about the elasticity of money, the euro dollar overseas. He has something called a euro dollar university. So what is it? It's basically a free market banking overseas outside of the Fed. Now, the Fed does control it a little bit because by proxy, when they raise interest rates, it either brings money back in or sends money overseas or exports, imports, inflation, so on and so forth. But the euro dollar, right, this more free market overseas where there's a more natural time value of money, right? And if you don't know what the time value of money is, it's basically a line, right, that says the longer your money is held up, right, the more return you want to get because there's more risk, okay? That's basically the time value of money. Now, I think it works better in the euro dollar system because you don't have a central planner, right, saying the time value of money is either up or down, right? And that's the Fed, okay? Now, why is the euro dollar coming to the U.S.? I think the only solution to fix hyperinflation, right? So if you remember in 2020, during the health scare under Trump, what did they do? They printed you know, whatever, trillions of dollars, the most, right? Trillions of money sign, baby, that they've ever printed, right? Now, I'm going to explain this via like a chemistry problem, okay? So here I want you to imagine like a petri dish and two different atoms running around, right? You have the Fed dollar, we'll do that FD, and you have the euro dollar. And it's in a solution that the Fed created that is diametrically opposed. They are pushing the atoms away, right? These two atoms cannot come together. Think about water that does come together, H2O, right? But they're sitting in a solution where they are diametrically opposed. And they're not just diametrically opposed, they are causing the atoms to speed up, right? And what happens when atoms speed up next to each other, right? Like an atom bomb, right? You have an explosion, okay? Boom. Here's the cloud. Here's the mushroom cloud. Okay, that is a bomb. Okay, a bomb. Okay, it's going to explode, right? Eventually, what the Fed wants and what is happening overseas in the commodity markets and the lending markets are diametrically opposed. They're speeding up. So how do you bring, right? Here's a small petri dish. These two atoms together, so they're harmonious, floating around this solution together. Okay, in this petri dish. Right, you got to add them, put them in a new solution, right? And this new solution, right, where you have the Fed dollar and you have the euro dollar and then you have Bitcoin, okay? Now, when it floats together, these atoms are no longer diametrically opposed over here, right? They're speeding up and going in opposite directions. These atoms are now attracted to each other, right? And why is that? So if you imagine this time value of money, if this one looks like this by the Fed, okay, and then this one has like a different arc, right? Say it's like a more sharp arc, right? And this is what it looks like over here in the euro dollar system, right? Here's the euro dollar, here's the Fed dollar, right? How do you bring those two yield curves together to become one, right? How do you make them one? This equals this, right? That's what I envision, right? You have this diametrically opposed system over here, okay? Not good. This one, right, where they use Bitcoin, right? They have Bitcoin in the center, and the atoms attach. And you form, oh, you can't even see it. Let me move myself up. You have Bitcoin down there, okay? This is good. This is what I think needs to happen to stop hyperinflation. Because if you don't do this and get on the same time value of money, you'll never find what's the word for symbiosis? Not a symbiosis, where it's like neutral. Okay, there's a chemistry term for that, right? Nothing is happening. It's just neutral, right? If you continue down this path, printing and not finding the real yield and not being tethered to reality, right, you're going to get this explosion. Even if Bitcoin, right, which a lot of people want this to become the de facto currency, doesn't, you could still solve this issue with the Lightning Network, with Bitcoin OS, which is the new thing on Sovereign, with Stacks, by creating a neutral euro dollar system. That's my theory, okay? Now, so let's exit out of this, okay? Now, how do you benefit from this? If I'm right about this theory, right? You have Sovereign, which has a stable coin, okay, on Bitcoin, right? Now, if you think Ethereum is the player, they've got a stable coin maker. Now, you're going to say, oh, what about Terra? The stable coins failed. That was a different type of program, right? Whenever people burned Terra, stablecoin went up. And then when they redeemed it, the supply of Terra went down. So it was like this automatic system. And that doesn't work because when there's a run on the bank and you burn all the Terra or create too much Terra, you create a hyperinflation or hyperdeflation, right? That's why I think Ethereum also doesn't work, because if you don't have a stable mesh net, right? Like Ethereum is deflationary, then you can run into problems. Nobody knows what's going on, right? And you have to do things like stealth QE to save the system. So if you like Ethereum, Maker is a way to do it, even though I don't like Ethereum because of that, what I've just described. You've got Arcadeco, which has its problems too, right? It's the stablecoin depegged, but it's not failing. It just depegged because of lack of liquidity, and they're trying to solve that with liquid stacking to create backing or to create deposits and so on and so forth. And if they can get their stablecoin USDA back to zero, I think this has a real shot. Plus, it's a low market cap. The upside, the FTV is 11.5 million. The upside for this is crazy. The upside for Sovereign is crazy. Maker, it's already at 1.8 billion, right? So it could continue to go up if it becomes a de facto crypto stablecoin protocol. But these have way more upside, right? Now, I'm just going to finish with this. You need to go follow Balaji because he helps me formulate these thoughts. He's talking about how diametrically opposed all the time the Democrats and the Republicans are and Congress is about, you know, whether it's about policy or communism versus capitalism or immigration issues, right? If you notice, nothing is getting solved, right? And it's because their budget is not tied to reality. When you vote for someone, you're hopefully voting for their policies, but when they get in office, they don't have to follow them because they just print money and do whatever they want, mostly line their pockets. You know, that's could be conspiracy. I could be wrong about that. Or they go to programs that they tell you they want to fund, but, you know, they just tell you that because they want to appease you, get elected, and then they go do something else, right? So that's a huge problem, right? And I think if you don't want the currency to hyperinflate, someone needs to look at this paint thing that I just came up with about having these two okay, so this Fed dollar over here, right? This is like a central planner dollar, okay? Like someone is trying to plan that value, okay? And that has never worked, right? And over here in this euro dollar, like I'm not saying I agree with the dollar. I'd like Bitcoin more, but if you do like the dollar, I think it's pretty obvious a free market dollar is way better. And you could reach another conclusion, right? You know, you may reference history and say, oh, well, we need the Fed. Look at what happened in the catastrophe, you know, and the Fed is the borrower of last resort. Okay, you could talk yourself into anything, right? I mean, I get it, right? But to me, it seems like the free market is the way to go. And if you want to prevent hyperinflation, you got to prevent this bomb, okay? So just to reiterate, right? So I'm not going to say that, right? This is what we look like in the Petri dish. We got the Fed, okay? And then we got the euro dollar over here. And then we've got the Fed dollar over here. These are diametrically opposed, I think. Two different curves, right? Yield curves. Okay, whatever the Fed says over here is the yield curve. Whatever the free market says is over here. This is creating a boiling point, okay? What I think needs to happen is we got to put Bitcoin in there. You got to get the Fed dollar and the euro dollar to attach to this atom and not become diametrically opposed. The electrons move back to the center. So I hope you got all that. It's very important that even if I'm wrong, we have this discussion because it's coming, right? Our parents have worked their whole lives for something that could possibly hyperinflate. To me, that's a huge issue. So, I've got a huge hunch, baby. So you can call me Hunch.